Helps Conference?
Well, the health conference.
It's technically a lay people conference, and
It helps ecclesia and yeah.
So helps is listed as a gift in the scriptures, and it is essentially a person who has the divine ability to come alongside and help somebody accomplish a goal. And so we thought it would be great to start the Helps Conference, which is designed to edify, empower, encourage, and engage with people who say, listen, I don't feel like I'm called to leadership. I am great in the background, and that's okay. And so we spend 2.5 days encouraging them and letting them know that you don't have to lead to matter.
Melissa Kennedy.
Melissa Kennedy, and you're on your way to the Helps Conference.
Yes.
And what do you hope to get out of the conference?
I just hope to gain more skills in my spiritual walk. I'm a social worker. I work with children and adolescents.
I just love the concept, and the concept that everyone matters. Everybody in the pews. You don't have to be a deacon or the trustee board member or even the reverend himself. It takes everyone to make the wheels turn.
call me Rose. This is my church, First Church, my pastor, Pastor Dillard. I'm here because I think it's a good concept, that he's including everyone. I was born in Mississippi. I did go to school in Evanston. I graduated from Evanston Township. I'm a phlebotomist.
Lou Etna Halliburton.
And are you a member of this church?
No, I'm not. I'm a member of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. I think it's about enrichment, and I think it's telling everyone that everyone is important. Everyone has a purpose.
Brianna. Rosemond. And why are you here tonight?
I hope to be moved by something that's said and to learn something new that I didn't know before.
Okay, thank you very much.
The vision in its very beginning has always been to start with certainly some observations from a church context, but it has always been designed to go beyond the borders of church, as we believe these things apply not just in church but also in the community as well as in business. And we believe that essentially everywhere you go there are people who lead and then there are people who follow. And so as opposed to the Helps Conference being a leadership conference, we just decided to create a followership one.
And how has it grown? How many people came to the first one and how many people are going to be here tonight?
I would say that we've expanded about 100 in growth compared to the first one.
We have people coming from Detroit, East St. Louis, Indiana, and we have people from all over the region. Judith and I were meeting 4 years ago, and really the meeting was derived out of her trying to find some purpose. Pastor, what is it that I'm going to do? What is it I feel like doing? And I had been wrestling with this vision, and I called her in one day. I said, God told me to do something, and I want you to help me, and I want you to lead it. And that was essentially how it birthed. I think that Judith's story is very much a direct example of that which we're trying to accomplish with the Helps Conference.
And what were you doing before this?
Sitting back there.
And sort of wondering.
I was so blessed earlier this year, probably end of last year, early this year, to get a call from Kimberly Holmes Ross, who was doing some contract work with Cradle to Career, centered around the idea of the Helps Conference. She had been here to, I believe, our first 2 conferences, and said, can you take this same principle and teach it to individuals in the community as we're looking to kind of derive this community team that is now known as Advocates for Action. And so I was just really stretched and excited because it has always been my desire in creating the Helps Conference to take it to those places beyond borders. And so I spent 4 months training this community team now known as Advocates for Action. And I walked them over a course of what I call the 4 Ds. First, to determine. You want to determine exactly who you are, who you're not, your skills, what they are, what they aren't, embracing the things you do well, embracing things you don't. And after we determine, we develop them, right? So the second month, we spent time talking about how to develop them. And I talked about creating intentional discomfort and exposing yourself to things that are not normal, to create intentional discomfort to develop yourself. And then the third month, the third D was to deploy. Now that you've determined and developed, deploy. So many people deploy before they developed, and sometimes even before they've determined, which makes them ineffective. And then lastly, as you're deployed, we deepen, and that's living a life of continuous learning. And these are people who are not aldermen. Nobody in their room was a mayor or a leader. But I told them right where you are, who you are, and at your best self, you can create tremendous impact. And
well, when I joined Cradle to Career, and I was put to task to bring this community voice to, to the community. In fact, I thought about this HELPS conference, and I thought about how it's important to let the community know how important they are in making decisions and into being a part of the issues that are going on. So I called him up, and he had worked this whole training out for community leadership. That was fabulous.
The path to leadership, I believe, always starts with followership and servanthood. Not that leadership isn't servanthood, because it is as well. But I just believe that maximizing and completing the level that you're on is the thing that opens the door for you to go to the next step, to the next level. And so sometimes we are trying to attain the next without having fully accomplished and exhausted the opportunities of the now. And so some people will find themselves eventually in leadership because they did followership really well.
But even if they don't reach leadership, what they are doing, as if they are contributing,
that's right.
Still effective.
It's still effective. One of the real great models that we look of that and that we preach and teach in our faith is we see it as a body, right? We refer to the church, this is a body, the body of Christ. And the face gets all the play, right? I got my hair cut, I'm looking, oh, you look cute. But like, if my spine, or legs or feet or whatever didn't help me to be able to move around, nobody would see my face. The face can do what it does because all the other parts of the body, which are unseen and not talked about, are
assisting it in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you learned in the 3 years that you've been doing this?
Humility. I've learned a lot of humility because I've come across different characteristics. So as a leader, you have to realize that not everyone are the same. You have to base everyone differently based on their individuality. And it's like the parts of the body. You can't get mad at the foot because it's not moving like the hand, because they have their own purpose. So each person in life have their own purpose. And so you have to accept them as that. So that has developed me in a lot of ways with patience and being more humble and more understanding.
So our theme this year is Know, K-N-O-W, and we've taken that from a scripture in Ephesians which says that you may know the hope to which he has called you, that you may know the hope to which he has called you. So our purpose this year is that people will leave here with a greater sense of knowing that they have been called to do something, that they have a purpose.
But given what's going on in our country right now,
Yes.
This kind of thing is very important to empower each and every individual to do something positive in their own community where they are. We may not be able to change the country, but we can change our community and ourselves.
That's right. The Bible teaches us that whatsoever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, right? Whatever you can reach. I can't reach everything, but it does hold me accountable that whatever I can speak to, whatever I can influence, whatever I can impact, I am expected to be throwing my whole self at it. And if everyone covered their ground, then the entire world would be covered.
It's like putting a puzzle together.
Absolutely.
So you have to do it piece by piece. So we're starting off with the church and with the church as a body. So we're expecting our members to go out, and even if they start first in their home and then they go outside and they go and move on to their block, and then they edify and encourage somebody on their block, and then that's now 2 blocks. and then it keeps going and it keeps going, and before you know it, it's a community, it's a town, it's a city, it's a state, and it will. And part of the goal also is to try to reach one soul at a time.
At times we can be very quantitatively focused as opposed to quality.
So I have
I was
city.
born and raised in Gary, Indiana, and my most impactful years were the 90s, where we were called the murder capital of the world. I am proud to say I'm from Gary because you don't have to necessarily surrender or succumb to your circumstances. That no matter the situation or circumstances, there is hope, and you can make it out and continue to grow.
I moved to Evanston when I was 8 years old. I was born in Jamaica, and I lived in Jamaica my first 8 years. So when I first moved to Evanston in the 80s, I don't want to say that I wasn't welcomed. Well, no, I wasn't welcomed. It was very tough. It was very tough. Like now, so many people want Jamaican food, or so many people want to, try to imitate the language, or the hair, or the custom. But when I first came here in the 80s, I had lots of challenges because my American accent, the way it is now, like when I tell people I'm Jamaican, the first thing they say is, you don't sound like you're Jamaican. I had to assimilate very quickly because back then you would get bullied. Yeah, it was very tough.
Both black, white.
Mostly black. Yeah, mostly the black community. Yeah, but like you said, Evanston has always been a bit segregated. So, the Caucasian side, they were at one table, and, the blacks were at another table. So, here I am, I was sitting at the edge of anyone who would say hi to me. It's no longer like that. And that we're more so coming together now. If someone is speaking to you in another language or of another tongue with another accent, I notice and I observe that there's more of a welcome. What I went through no longer exists. Yeah.
Or maybe on a much smaller scale.
You rarely see it, so yes.
Okay.
On a much smaller scale.
I'm excited to be here at my first ever Health Conference. So inspired knowing that this Health Conference has been the inspiration for one of our newest leadership initiatives here in town. Thank you, Pastor Monte Dillard, for all that you have done. Thank you for sharing your vision beyond your church family and with the entire city of Evanston.
Welcome to the Health Conference. While you're still on your feet, I want you to spend a few minutes in what we call meet and greet. I want everybody out of their seats. I want you to run to at least 5 people and tell them I am at the Health Conference. Earlier this year, I think at the end of last year, from a great woman in this community, our beloved sister Kimberly Holmes Ross, and she called me and she's doing some contract work with Cradle to Career, and she said, I've been to the Health Conference the last 2 years, and I want to know, would you take that model that you don't have to lead to matter, and would you teach that to people in the community? And I was like, teach a class of what we call community leaders, who we now formally call the Advocates for Action. I see one in the house right there. And they will be with us on Saturday.